Hi, this video will show you how to set up assets. When you come into the home page, go to Net Worth, Starting Assets, Add an Asset. What type of asset are you recording? Start off with a bank account at First Trust, and this is January 2010. Everywhere that there is a red asterisk, that means there's a requirement to fill that field. So as you can see, we are required to fill in fair market value. So what's left to fill in is fair market value, which in this case would be the amount of dollars in the bank account, and we'll do $1,100. Once we've done that, all the asterisks are filled out, and so the Create button has been enabled. You'll notice that there is an asterisk for the acquired date, but not the dollar amount. That is optional, and let's hit Create. Let's add another asset. This time let's put in some grain inventory. So the window's going to change a little bit. We're starting off the year, January 2010, with some grain inventory, and let's say barley. We can be putting in metric tons, bushels, kilograms, or pounds. Let's put in bushels. And let's say that there was 5,000 bushels of barley at $3 a bushel. You'll see now how there's a conversion underneath to show you what it is in dollars and volume in metric ton, kilograms, pound, ton, and so forth. And let's hit Create. You can also do more inventory by going on the copy icon, which is the double page, copy this record. And so it quickly makes it easier to put in more inventory of, let's say, 3,000 bushels of canola at $10 a bushel. But maybe this time we have a cash advance against that canola. So we're going to do cash advance. And there is $15,000 worth of canola, advance against canola, zero interest, and of course it will be a repayment of the $15,000. And Create. So what we see now is that we have an asset with a loan against that asset. Let's add another asset. Let's go down into equipment, a tractor. We bought it in January in 2009 for $40,000. So the fair market value would still be, let's say, $40,000. And this tractor is used 50% for the grain, 10% for livestock, and 40%. And you notice when I'm putting numbers in that the 100% in the grain operation will decrease by the amount I put into the livestock and forage. So when I put in 40, so that means it's grain 50, livestock 10, and forage 40. So here we're able to allocate an asset across the different enterprises. We don't have a loan against it. I should explain here, the residual means what is the value of this asset at the end of the year. So in this case, we're saying that at the beginning of the year, this asset was worth $40,000. At the end of the year, we're going to say that it is going to depreciate by 5%. So let's put a 95%. So the tractor will be worth 95% of the $40,000 at the end of the year. And let's hit Create. Now this canola, let's go back to that canola and show that, you know what, in November of 2010, we sold that canola, $30,000, and I'm going to hit Dispose. I want to show you that because this timeline is very important. If we look at the timeline of 2010, you'll notice that we have everything is included in this 2010 financial statement that will have a beginning date previous to it and an ending date after it. So here, because we're looking in 2010, we had this asset in existence during the 2010 year. But because we disposed of it in 2010, when we go to 2011, you'll notice that this grain canola will have disappeared. So when you buy an asset in 2009, it'll start showing up in 2009, 2010, and 2011. It'll keep on showing up until you dispose of it. But every year that you have that asset, it's going to be depreciated by the residual amount. So in this case, we said that it was worth $40,000 at the beginning of 2010. We wanted to depreciate it by 5%, so it's worth 95% of the value at the end of the year. And so that's why when we look at this summary page, this tractor is not showing being worth $40,000 in 2011, but 95%, or in this case down to $38,000. So it was really only worth $35,000. When you put a number in, you can override the residual. So it expected it to be worth $38,000, but when we tell it that, you know what, it's only worth $35,000 now that we're here in 2011, and so now it's in black because it's the actual value that I've put into the asset as to what it's worth. So that is how you add assets. You can look from one asset to another by looking at the cash accounts. Whenever you add a new item into an asset grouping, it'll be a button on top, and equipment. Let's add another item, and this time I want to go to land. So we're going to add an owned quarter of land. Let's call it the home quarter. You can put whatever name you want in it. We've had it many years. Let's just put a few years ago, and it was worth $50,000. And it does require a location quarter, so we're going to say that was northwest of 111 west of 1. And the soil zone is black. It's not required, but it's nice to put in. Production acres is 150 acres. Legal acres is optional, but I'll put 160. And the taxes we'll say are $500. And now you can allocate this asset again over to the grain, livestock, and forage. And so because we house some of the livestock here in this home place, we're going to say 5% is also livestock. We don't have a loan against it, and of course with land we normally do not depreciate that land, so we're going to say 100%. And let's go create. Now now you see how the land button has appeared, and so let's add another asset. This time I want to show you how we're going to have also rented land. So normally you don't add rented land in as an asset, so we're not going to ask you the value of that asset, but we're going to allow you to put in, or we want you to put in the land rent that you rent, and we're going to say this one was northwest of 2, and soil zone black. Production acres, again we'll put 150 acres in out of 160. What we need to add in here for the 2011 crop year that we're working in is the amount of rent. So on this 150 acres you can either say I pay $3,000 for that 150 acres, which would equal $20 an acre, or instead, if you go by the per acre basis, if you put $25 an acre, you'll have the cash rent of $37.50. Another way of doing this is that if you're on a crop share basis, if you're on a 20% crop share, whatever crop budget you assign to this land, which we'll talk about later, will figure out a 20% value of the revenue. And what you can add to that, if your agreement is with the landlord that you're going to pay a minimum of $20 an acre, then you'll pay 20% at a minimum $20 an acre, then it'll never be less than 20 in your overhead rent calculation. And you can also put on a maximum, so it would no longer, you'd not pay more than 50. So those are optional depending on what your agreement is, and we'll hit create. Okay, and it's shown up here as owned land versus rented land. So that is how you put in an asset, and I encourage you to keep using the add an asset button or using the copy feature to minimize the amount of time it takes to put in. So I hope this helps you learning about entering assets. Thank you.